Hello, and welcome again to Talking Baseball with Leon Lee. Today is January 27th, 2021, and my name is Steve. I'm here again with Ryan, and again, we're going to do our best to keep up with Mr. Leon Lee talking a little baseball. And today, I think we're going to pay a little tribute to some of the Hall of Famers that we've lost in the last calendar year. But first, Leon, we have a good friend back with us today.
We sure do, Steve, and I appreciate it. And likewise, really good to see you and Ryan here tonight. But we have my old best friend again, and we're starting back off with the great Eddie Cervantes. And if we bore everybody out there, if we go over our time limit, we apologize. But this is what we call talking real baseball right here. So anyway, yeah, how you doing, Eddie?
Good. Thanks. Good to be back here doing this again. It's should be a fun little segment here.
Oh yeah, I got a little white. My hair got a little whiter. Your hair got a little balder. We're getting a little older, but baseball is still a huge part of our life. I mean, it's something we loved and we've got a lot of passion for it. And it's fun here having you guys on here. We can just sit back and talk baseball.
Sounds good.
Well, Leon, we had again last week. Unfortunately, Hank Aaron had passed away, and I know you had personally met Hank on a couple different occasions, and I think we wanted to start off maybe with some stories about Hank and kind of get into some stories about some other players that you guys have maybe come across during your playing days.
Well, yeah, it was really a sad story. Unfortunately, we get older and, Hank was having some health issues and as he was 86 years old, but it doesn't change the fact, when you start bringing back a lot of memories, and they've had some memorials for him. And some of my friends, I saw Marquise Grissom giving a little talk about Hank. I mean, Hank meant a lot to a lot of people. And I go back. I mean, Hank was a really good friend of the great Sadahara O. They had started the World Children's Baseball Fair years ago. I'm also a real good friend of Sadahara O over the years, playing in Japan for 10 years. So we really had that in common. We used to talk about that years ago. And my brother, matter of fact, last night showed me an old picture, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, a picture with me. Actually, we were at the Major League Winter Meetings in Nashville, Tennessee, and with me and Hank was shaking hands, and I didn't even realize he had that picture, but it brought back a lot of memories. But one really fun story, you guys, is I was managing in Japan, and my son Derek was he was in the 2003 World Series against the New York Yankees, and my son was playing for the Florida Marlins, and Hank Aaron was scheduled to throw out the first pitch that night, tradition. And we had just flown in from Japan, and I went downstairs by the locker room, and lo and behold, it was a little early. I went down to see Derek prior to the game, and Hank was standing there, and we shook hands. We started talking about the days, and I told him I just came back in from Japan, and Mr. O had told him to say hello, tell him hello if I happen to see him. And, they stayed in touch. But then it had a chance for about 40 minutes. It was just me and Hank. And those times when Hank Aaron is by himself with you, he just kind of opens up, and he talked about the old days and some of the things he went through, which was really tough. I mean, some of the racial issues and the death threats he used to get when he was closing in on home runs. I was there when he hit number in San Diego. I think he hit number 701 or 2 or something like that. My brother was playing for the Padres, and I came in from Cedar Rapids, and Hank was hitting them. But I think that was 72, late 72. And he broke the record in 74, April 74. But we were talking about, and he was really, he kind of goes, he's just real calm, and he talks about all the hate mail he used to get. And I just can't even imagine anybody, just that hateful for somebody to break a record. It's just painful.
Yeah, that must have been difficult, very difficult. I saw a segment on the news after he passed just the other day, and and he was talking about how difficult those days were leading up to him breaking Ruth's record, and it's a shame that
It's a shame. Yeah. Yeah. He
had to
told
go
me,
through
Eddie,
that.
he told me, Eddie, himself, and it came out I saw it written somewhere recently, but he told me then right there, he said, I really wouldn't wish that on anybody. He said it was a really tough time, and I just would never like to see anybody have to go through what I went through during that time, which is a sad commentary when you're breaking one of the greatest hitters of all time's home run record, you know?
Exactly. Well, when they did that segment on the news, they had Jerry Royster interviewing him on
Uh-huh.
Hank, and of course, Jerry had the great story that he was there when Hank broke the record. He was
Exactly.
in the opposite dugout. He was
Yeah.
playing with the Dodgers at the time, and of course, Dusty was in the on deck
On deck
circle.
circle. That's right. That's
Dusty's
right.
on deck, and then of course, Roland Office, another buddy of ours, Roland Office is in the Hall of Fame. You know why? Because he's in the lineup card that went into Cooperstown of that game. He was inserted into the game after Hank hit the home run. They took Hank out of the game. Roland went in for him.
Oh my God. That's
That was
something. And another,
so his
and I,
so his name
I
is
think
in the
it's
on
in the
that.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
That's and all from Sacramento.
exactly.
But
All these things. Yeah.
but I tell you another one. You didn't know this. Now the person he hit it off of was who, Rhino?
He was a Dodger. What was his
Yeah.
name?
What was his name?
I got to know this one. It was,
Good trivia for you.
I know, right? I literally knew his name the other day when they were doing on the radio. I'm having a brain fart.
Al Downing.
Okay, yeah. I knew he's a Dodger, though.
Okay, now Al Downing, after that, we were kind of like golfing partners. And for years later, I played golf with him and Frank Robinson. And I was teasing him. I said, what is it like? You had a really good career, but you're known for giving up Hank Aaron's 715th home run. Mm-hmm. And he says, yeah, people thought I did it on purpose. Like I threw the ball up there and get him on purpose. Like I want to be known for giving up Hank Aaron's 715th home run. He said, I was trying my best to get that rascal out. But it was a good story, because, he had a pretty good career, and he was kind of known for giving up Hank Aaron's 715th home run. So,
right.
It's good hearing both sides of the story.
The closest, I never had the opportunity to meet Hank, of course. But the closest I came to Hank was my first year with Baltimore. I'm in Bluefield, West Virginia, and one of my teammates was a guy named Will Aaron. And Will Aaron was his cousin.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little left-handed. He was a third baseman, but he was real slight of build, left-handed hitter, and could run. And he wasn't afraid to let you know.
He wasn't
afraid to let you know he could run. I swear, I did until I saw him do this. Did I believe how fast he was? He hit one time he was up, he hit a two-hopper to the shortstop. Shortstop kind of played it back. It was hit fairly firm.
Uh-huh.
He beat it out.
Wow.
Two-hopper, and he beat it out. Now, shortstop may have kind of, lackadaisical on it maybe, but I swear I was a believer. And but yeah, Will Aaron anyway.
Will Aaron. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they call like Lou Brock one time. Another one that passed away recently. Lou Brock. We were down in Florida, and Bake McBride. You guys remember Bake McBride?
Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he came up with St. Louis, and he hit 4 ground balls that day to first baseman and went 4 for 4. He did, and Lou Brock made a statement. He said he was one of Hank Aaron too. Hank Aaron. It was Hank Aaron, Bob Gibson, and Lou Brock. They were the 3 guys that always called me Little Lee. Because I was Leron's younger brother, they would call, hey, Little Lee.
Right.
So Lou Brock say, when Bake McBride beat that second or third one out the first, Lou Brock said, hey, Little Lee. He said, that's not running fast. That's flying low. Because those days we had some guys get really, really run, and they knew how to run, and they knew how to steal a bag. They knew how to go first or third. Nowadays, it's a little different,
Oh,
but
man.
Even Hank Aaron had 240 career stolen bases.
exactly, he wasn't as slow as people thought he was. He was a 5-tool player.
Yeah, it was amazing. So they were showing the clips of him hitting and how he stepped into everybody. He was hitting off his front foot and using those wrists and hands like, and Leon, we talked about that the other day, how that's how a lot of us hit back when
That's
we were
right.
growing up.
Exactly.
We hit that way, and but he took it to another level. He
used to practice with a hammer, a sledgehammer. Literally, that's where he got his nickname. He didn't lift weights or anything. He would just use a sledgehammer when he was sitting down outside or inside. He'd have a big old sledgehammer, and he would just, pull that sledgehammer down, don't let it hit the ground, and pull it back up. Sledgehammer down, sledgehammer up. And that's what they call him, Hammering Hank.
Hammering Hank. Yeah.
But early in his career, if you remember, he used to hit, when he was in the minor leagues, he hit cross-handed.
Oh, is that right?
When he first started his baseball career, he was hitting cross-handed. They had a hard time making him switch over and hit the regular way. And he goes, "Oh, that works. It's okay."
Amazing. Yeah.
Do you guys remember the TV show Home Run Derby?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. That was filmed in Wrigley Field in LA. And that's when I, got to see a lot of those older players take a lot of swings, and the way they were filming it, it was very interesting. But probably the player that impressed me the most, and they had, Frank Robinson, Ernie Banks, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, all those guys on that show. But the player that impressed me the most was Hank Aaron. Because even when he wasn't hitting a home run in the Home Run Derby, it seemed like everything was a line drive.
He'd hit line drives out of the park. He hit a home run in San Diego. I was watching it. Dave Roberts, third baseman, playing third, young third baseman, and Hank Aaron got out there on that front foot, and he dropped the barrel. I mean, we call it dropping the barrel, and that's why these Frank Robinson, all those guys went more down on a ball to get it up. He hit a line drive that Dave Roberts at third bent his knees and looked like he was getting ready to jump at it. He was going to jump for it, and the ball ended up out of the ballpark. Dave Winfield, they teach these kids these launch angles now, but the great hitters, they were more on top of the ball, and they put that backspin on the ball, and that ball carried an extra 20, 25 feet.
And that's why he was able to. That's why he was able to hit the breaking pitch so well, is because his ability to adjust on the fly was attributed to that downward arc, as opposed to, not to get into the hitting style of the launch, what they call these days the launch, what these guys hitting on an upward swing. But it was a shorter distance coming from up top going down than what these guys have to drop the bat head to get it in that. And that is precisely why I believe, I'm not the hitting guru, but I learned a lot in the 14 years of being paid to play the game in that time, that these guys, that's why the breaking pitches, they're so susceptible to it, because they have to start earlier to catch up to that fastball, that then they're susceptible to chasing curveballs that aren't even close. Whereas for example, Hank, he was on his way anticipating fastball, and then he adjusted to the curveball.
And that's because his hands, you see his hands load all the time.
Exactly.
He had a big, and staying back is not so much on your front side. Staying back is, even though he was going toward the ball, like Willie Mays did, Roberto Clemente did, Mickey Mantle did, they would all get it going, but those hands always stayed back.
Which created balance.
Exactly.
It created balance. It created that center of balance so that your body didn't get too far forward.
Yeah, and then they can adjust to the curveball. That's why
Exactly.
they always say if you hung a curveball, like my brother he was talking last night with Billy Williams. He was on the phone with Billy Williams last night. You remember old Billy Williams?
Yeah.
And we'd always tease, if a pitcher got a ball up in the zone, you were in trouble. And if he hung the curveball up there, you know, good hitters just didn't miss them, you know.
Yeah.
But your hands went up, your hands were up to the ball where you got on a level plane with that ball. You weren't trying to swing upward on it.
Right.
And that was just a natural way of hitting those days. And you know, when Hank Aaron did a home run derby in Japan also with Sadahara O, when they did that children's fair together, Mr. O was the one that passed up Hank Aaron worldwide. I know people didn't want to count it, but they counted it over there, as they should have, because he ended up with 768 home runs. But Sadahara O would lift that leg. He had a flamingo style, and he would practice with a samurai sword. And boy, I tell you what, he got those hands on top and went down through that ball and hit just rockets everywhere. Right. And people say, oh yeah, the Japanese fences are short, but this guy could flat out hit because he had the same plane on the ball that all the great hitters in baseball had.
Another cool thing about Hank Aaron that I heard about is he still would have had 3,000 hits if he didn't hit a single home run that he hit.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So,
well, a good hitter's a good hitter. A good hitter's a good hitter. If you just happen to have some power, then some balls will get in the air and go out the park. He had a knack to get the ball in the air. But power is not always hitting the ball over people. Power's most of the time hitting the ball past people. You know, so if you get guys that are hitting a lot of line drives, and Eddie, you can attest to this. I mean, you don't have to be a big, strong guy to hit the ball past people where they take one step and the ball's in the outfield. That's power.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Creating bat speed and what we call it, pop. It was called pop. You had, if you had that explosion through the ball, that explosion, when that bat head speed increased at just before the point of contact, that was, we called it, that guy's got pop. And that's when that ball, it just explodes off of the bat.
Without a doubt. And I'll tell you another thing that makes that pop that you're talking about, when that ball hits the bat, it makes the defense flinch. And when a defensive player flinch and then has to go toward the ball, he's going to miss that. He's not going to get there. But
it's a game of inches.
It is
a game of inches in the infield, the whole game. It's a game of inches, and that creates those inches right there. That hesitation.
Exactly. But another one who had a big loop in his bat, but he got that big 40-ounce bat around, who just recently passed also. It's Dick Allen. I know a lot of people don't remember Dick Allen, but Dick Allen was really, he's up for the Hall of Fame and will probably get in. He should have already been in. But there was another one. He had that big hitch in his swing, kind of take the barrel over the top. And when it came back through there, boy, it had some lightning on it. And he hit a home run one time in St. Louis. The wind was blowing straight in. The flag in center field was blowing straight in, Eddie, you guys. And he hit a line drive. The center field took a step in and then turned around and realized that ball went right past the flagpole. And right when it went past the flagpole, the wind just happened. It was timing. The wind shifted and the flag started blowing straight out. So the story was that Dick Allen hit that ball so hard that he turned the wind around. That's funny. But see, you get guys like him and Frank Robinson. You got guys that and some of the guys that recently passed, Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, Don Sutton. We lost Tom Seaver. We lost some guys that the one thing they all had in common, that during that era, and I relate to it, is their just supreme ability to compete.
Exactly. And I got to chime in on that. Competing.
Go ahead, please.
And here's a good story with two of those names you just mentioned, Tom Seaver and Bob Gibson.
Yep.
Tom Seaver was he was a rookie with the Mets in whenever I forget what, in the 60s, when late 60s.
Mhm.
And Chuck Estrada was with the Mets, and he was recounting this story in the newspaper, and he was talking about in those days when this article came out, Major League Baseball was going through the beanball wars era, where they were talking, the pitchers were throwing at batters too much, and how do you get away from that and whatever. And Chuck Estrada brought up the story when Seaver was pitching a game against Bob Gibson, and Seaver comes up to bat for the first time, and Gibson proceeds to plunk him. He hits him. He hits him in the hip, and Seaver heads down to first base, and he looks out at the mound, and Gibson's looking at him, and he goes, "Welcome to the big leagues."
Yeah.
So the game progresses, Chuck Estrada says, and he goes, next time Bob Gibson comes up to the plate, Seaver plunks him, and on his way to first base, he looks out at the mound, and Seaver's looking at him, and he goes, "It's good to be here." So it's like instead of getting mad and turning it into a fight, it was a competition. It was something special. You would have to look at that.
That's huge. And it was real prominent in those days where we could talk trash a little bit, and it was well intentioned. Everybody understood it. I got knocked down in the game by Scipio Spinks. He was a 98-mile-an-hour guy. We had been to lunch together that day. He was playing for the Cubs organization. We were at AAA. And I get up to the plate in the first pitch, and we didn't have ear flaps. And like you said, beanballs, they come at your head because they felt like your head is the easiest one to get out of the way of. Now, if they throw it behind your head, they're trying to hurt you. But if they throw it right at your head, it's easy to get out of the way. So we weren't really worried about headshots. But he yelled at me. He says, "Just because you're my friend don't mean you can get up on top of the plate." And just to give me an idea, I said, okay, I'll back up. But in those days, it was like Bob Gibson. We were in instruction league. He came down to get a little extra work early in my career with the Cardinals. I'm taking batting practice, and he's throwing just to get some arm work in behind an L screen. In those days, pitchers used to throw BP. They don't do it anymore.
Right.
And I hit a ball out of the ballpark off of him in BP, and I looked at it. Oh, it went out, and I got back in there, and he drilled me in the arm. And I'm going like, "Man, what did you hit me for?" He says, "You looked at it too long." But that was just like, you can't get mad. Well, okay, that's Bob Gibson. I learned my lesson. Yeah. And those were different standards in those games where you didn't let other teams intimidate you a certain way. You knew, you crossed that line and you were going out there and really competing.
Well, that's the whole idea about you get hit, you go down to first base, you don't rub it because you don't want them to know that it hurt.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's another one, having experience with Frank Robinson, who was another Hall of Famer that passed away not long ago. And Frank would tell me, he says, "You know what? People always say," and I learned from those things, but how come you never get mad when you're on the ball field? And he goes, "You can't ever let the other team know that they got in your head." You can go in the clubhouse or down the tunnel somewhere and just tear stuff up, but don't ever let people know on the ball field that they got to you. And you see these guys throwing helmets and throwing things all over the place. And at one time there was a story when Dick Allen was in St. Louis. They had a kid got called up to the big leagues, and Joe Haig, his name was Joe Haig, didn't stay in the big leagues long, but you could look his name up. He would always want everybody to know he's mad about striking out or doing something wrong, and he'd throw the helmet. So one day he strikes out, comes back in the dugout, throws his helmet, and Dick Allen, here's another Dick Allen story, real calm, real quiet. He goes over to Joe and he goes, "Hey, Joe, so I'm curious." He said, "Why are you always throwing your helmet everywhere?" And Joe goes, well, I just want to let people know I'm not happy about striking out. I get really upset when I strike out. So Dick Allen goes, well, I can understand that, but I just want you to know one thing. He said, if that helmet or that bat ever hits me, I'm going to break your neck. And that was the last time Joe, because he said, it's not necessary to show everybody you're angry. You play the game. If you strike out, you strike out. If you hit a home run, run around the bases, act like you've done it before.
Yeah, and you take that moment instead of getting angry. You take that moment. Yeah, you're not happy about it, but you take that moment to learn something about what happened, what went wrong there.
That's right. And sometimes you just got to say, "Hey, pitcher, you got me. Good work, good job."
Yeah. Damn, that was a good pitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys are talking a lot about these players that have passed, and another one was Al Kaline, and they always talk about his and all those players you've mentioned. Their character is just kind of a different level of character. They're kind of bigger than the game in a lot of respects. But I know, Eddie, you also had some good experiences playing up there in the Pacific Northwest that kind of led to it's getting to be kind of a famous documentary now. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
The Battered Bastards of Baseball, starring Eddie Cervantes.
You cut out. You froze on me for a second when you were finishing that, Steve. But yeah, I know where you're going there with the Battered Bastards of Baseball. It was the Portland Mavericks, and it was a independent team that Kurt Russell's dad, Bing Russell, who was an ex-actor, apparently had played some professional baseball when he was younger, minor league ball a couple of years. And he threw together this independent team put together of ex-professionals and college players who never got drafted. And I happened to fit into the ex-professionals who, after I had been released at a given point, went up there. And you know who turned me on to that, Leon, was Jay McIntyre.
Oh, really?
Jethro was the one who directed me. He says, go up there to Portland. They're holding this tryout, whatever, and they're doing this and whatever. And so, but anyway, yeah, that was, it was one of the best experiences of baseball for me after I had signed professionally with Baltimore, because it was the first time I got to get back to the idea of having real fun. When your first years in the minor leagues, in an organization, you're trying to have fun. And when you're out on the field, it's all business. You're playing the game. You're doing what you've always done. But in the back of your head, somebody is watching.
That's right.
And it changes your mentality a little bit sometimes. Some guys handle it fine. Some guys don't handle it at all. Don't know how to handle that kind of pressure. But it's there. And playing in Portland, well, there was no big league club ahead. It was just, that was it. You were there and you were playing the game. And so that's, the fun came back into the game for me. And that led me even to go to Mexico. And I played 7 years professionally there, which was the same thing, having fun.
Having fun.
I mean, playing the game, and you're just out there doing what you love. And it reminded me, and I just saw it for the first time, this movie, it was an older movie the other night, $1 Million Arm. Did you ever see that movie, Leon? About
I was almost responsible for that movie.
I remember you talking about what you had gone and scouted, but and I was thinking about that when I was watching the movie, about the agent who found these two kids in India and he did, but he was he was he was trying to make it a money making, because he was down on his luck as an agent.
Right.
And so the kids that initially failed in their tryout that he got them, and it was a process, and until he realized, and it comes out in the movie, that you're not letting the kids have fun. You're not letting, and that was a point of the movie, in that let them have fun, and let them go get up there. Both pitchers, and I guess after they got a second tryout, they ended up signing with the Pittsburgh organization. I don't know how
Right.
long they lasted, but the whole point was, playing baseball, it's a game.
It's a game.
And you
That's
gotta
right.
have fun. You gotta have fun in it. And
That's why we put
Portland was that, Steve.
Yeah, it was. And I remember seeing Bing always, he was on Bonanza a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the television series. He was always getting shot.
He was
But
always
yeah.
getting shot. He was.
But you remember the movie we did, Mr. Baseball,
Oh yeah.
and we put that it was Tom Selleck's idea. We were always talking about how the game, even then, it was just getting to a point where it wasn't fun. He had done some of his pre-movie stuff with some of the big league teams in practice and going out, hanging out with the guys, and because he loved baseball. But he goes, man, Leon, he goes, it just seems like guys aren't having fun like they used to. I said, yeah, it's a little different. So we put that line in the game. If you remember in the movie Mr. Baseball, where he was lighting the guy's shoestring on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had and the manager got mad. He said, this is baseball. Baseball's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
We wanted to put, he wanted to put emphasis. He was going to put this in the movie because we're going to put emphasis on the fact that baseball's supposed to be fun. And see, now kids really aren't having fun because the coaches are out there trying to win everything.
Exactly.
Man.
Bringing up that scene with the shoestring, practical jokes. When I was down in Mexico, some of the dugouts have a series of about 6 or 7 concrete steps going out of the dugout. And sometimes a player would be standing with his one foot up on one of the upper steps and the other foot down on a lower step, and he's leaning on that front foot, looking out and watching the game. And it was always the pitcher who would do something like this. A pitcher would grab from the trainer's box, he'd get a ball of cotton. He'd get a ball of cotton, and he'd soak it in alcohol from the trainer's box, and boom, soak it in alcohol.
Yep.
And on that back foot, with metal cleats and on concrete, there's that open space, that you're not standing on dirt. So it slided under his shoe right at the heel and light it, move away. And the guy, every once in a while, as it's getting bigger, the flame underneath his heel, you'd see the guy would reach back. He would reach back and scratch the bottom of his leg like something was, until he finally get mad, and they always knew who was the practical
who it was.
worker.
Well, who was the guy in Mexico, Eddie, that was real famous? A long, tall, skinny, sidearm right-hand pitcher back in the day.
Horacio Pena.
Horacio Pena. I played with him in Culiacan, and he was the biggest jokester I've ever played with in my life.
You froze on me, but yeah, I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah. Oh my God. He had every trick in the book. I tell you. But those were the days when you talk about the Portland Mavericks and like what Steve asked, that's the epitome of fun. And that's a big thing for kids coming up now. If you want kids to stop quitting playing baseball, you have to put the fun back in it. But also let them have the freedom to laugh. Coaches nowadays think if you're laughing about something in the dugout, then you must not be paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when you're actually laughing, it's helping you to relax.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And if you're having conversation about the game and you're doing it lighthearted, and even talking a little trash or with each other, or paying attention to what's going on in the field, beat him up, ball. We used to say a ground ball go to an infielder, we say, eat him up, ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't see kids do that anymore.
Well,
It just
yeah, it's a completely different mentality when it comes to that, and the idea that when you talk about and I always use the term of failure. I know you don't like to use that, but when you think about it, all failure is it's just a form of learning,
but
and
yeah, but that's where kids they don't take it like that. What you're
right,
saying is exactly right. Yeah, they
because
looked at it.
because but if they have this coach who's they know is going to say something to them like you're saying, they don't have a chance to process it that way and look at it. Okay, how am I going to correct this? What did I just do, and what do I have to do to correct and make and not make that mistake again? They're not thinking that because they're waiting for that coach, or they're afraid that coach is going to jump on them.
Exactly.
So they don't have the chance to process it themselves and be like we've always taught, like you've taught me. You be your own coach.
Yeah, be your own coach.
Learn how to be your own coach, and they don't have a chance to do that if they're worried about the coach and they're not processing it themselves.
Exactly. But it's like Rhino. Rhino remember the days when if he missed the ball, I'd say stuff like, "Put a glove on that foot, meat," or
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
immediately it makes you kind of relax. It's like, well, it's not that big a deal. I missed it. I didn't want to miss it. I wish I want to catch everything, but understanding, yeah, you are going to miss some. And sometimes, how this game is, it'll make you look really bad sometimes. But
Right.
but you also have to be able to laugh at yourself. Pat your chest and say, "Hey, my bad. Let's go."
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's because you have a loose attitude there. Getting back to getting back to those Portland days. I also played, Steve. I played with Jim Bouton played with us one season.
Oh my God!
Right.
Jim Bouton played with us, and you know what? When I was a kid, I was a Yankee fan, and for one reason, because the Yankee game of the week was all on Saturday. Saturday, it was always there was the only team. There was only one time it was on Saturday the game was televised, and it was the Yankees, and probably because the owners owned CBS, I think it was.
Probably so, yeah.
And so anyway. But I tell you, so Jim Bouton, I had respect for him because he was an ex-Yankee. And, but I tell you, playing behind him, it was a freeing experience because you knew he was a professional. He was playing in the big leagues. And so playing behind him, you had a chance to relax and know I can do my job. I know he's going to throw strikes. I'm going to be ready mentally and physically out there. And it just made it so much easier to play the game in that situation that way, partly because you're allowed to have fun and you're enjoying it, and you're enjoying it because that guy on the mound is going to do his job.
That's right. Absolutely. That makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, that's a good story about Jim Bouton. Obviously he's famous for the book he wrote, which I read, which chronicles a lot of his, crazy antics and crazy playing days through his career. So that's a good story to hear about. The fact that you were playing behind him and had so much trust in him. And
right.
I was going to ask you one more, when you're playing behind somebody like that, or we go back to those hitters that had pop, I was just going to ask you one technical question, being a middle infielder, when you recognize those hitters that were coming up that did have pop, how did that change your mindset or your approach to getting ready?
It just made me back up about 2 or 3 steps. But yeah, no, but seriously, yeah, sometimes, and that was uh, probably a culmination of just years and years and years of playing. There are so many things that you go through. They called it, in later days, in recent days, years. You got the batter walking up. Okay, how many guys on base, how many outs, where are the runners, what's the score, what inning, what kind of pitcher do I have? Is he a fastball pitcher? Does he got a lot of velocity? Is he a breaking ball pitcher? Are they going to pull him? And then you factor that in with the hitter. And over the years, all this stuff that you're processing, the pre-pitch stuff, when you first started doing that, when you're in high school or something, there was like 1 or 2 things you thought of. You're ready. And then the more you played, you always added stuff to that equation. You're always adding and adding information to be ready in every situation. But at a given point, all those different things are processed. I mean, just like that. And then there's just a couple of things that you have to think about specific to that particular situation that, in that situation, you're going, okay, yeah, what kind of hitter? Okay, man, I remember this guy. I know this guy. And,
that's right.
And so, yeah, this guy hits. So, and then you have to rely on, okay, knowing the signals, knowing what that catcher is giving the pitcher. If you know the signals and are paying attention to what that pitch is going, that helps you anticipate what could possibly happen. You're never going to know for exactly what's going to happen with every pitch and every hitter. And pitchers aren't always that consistent, and hitters will even sometimes, maybe he got fooled and he's a little late on a swing, but the ability for you to think in that situation with processing all that information is so important to you developing as a player. And that is something that I feel is lost at the lower levels, because and all they do is they go out to a position, and then at a given point, a coach may tell them, to move a certain way, in or out or left or right, or back up, or they're always giving them the information and telling them what to do instead of them doing it on their own, filter processing all the information themselves. It takes away from the actual playing of the game yourself. And I think, Leon, that as well as anybody too. Yeah.
But I tell you, Eddie, it's the thing that ruins it for me is the player's instinct of understanding the type of hitter. Like you said earlier, I know that guy. So you got instant information knowing his bill, how his swing looks, where his angles are. But nowadays, all they do is shift. Just shift over. He's a pull hitter. Go that way. Everybody go that way. Everybody go that way.
Yeah.
Whereas individually, you can cover so much more territory by players just being aware. When you played second base, Eddie, back in the day, even back in our amateur days, certain hitters come up, you turn around to the outfield and say, hey,
he came here last time.
Yeah, just be aware a little bit more this way. Be aware that he's probably going to hit the ball somewhere in this area. That's our instincts talking.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't just say, shift everybody over.
Yeah.
You were conscious that he might hit a ball there, but most hitters in our day, guys knew how to, like Hank Aaron. We talk about Hank Aaron, hit 755 home runs, but he hit the ball all over the place.
All over. Well, and that's what, in our day, and going back to those shifts, we were shifting on our own. I would take, getting back to your question a little bit, Steve, in that, if I know that number 3 or number 4 hitter that had that pop, that the good hitter, I would shift. I'm playing him more in the hole. I'd tell that third, if I was playing short, I'd tell the third baseman, hey,
There you
I've
go,
got the
right
hole.
there.
I've got the hole. You can take the line. You can
That's what I'm talking about.
guard the line a little more. I've got the hole. I'm over a little bit. And I'd even tell the second so that the second baseman would play more up the middle. So we were shifting, we were making those decisions on our own. They have just exaggerated the fact, and they've made it to, I think it's silly to put an infielder out in the outfield, but hey, that's the way they're playing the game. And
Yeah.
I'd like to, you know what I'd like to know? I'd like to know if they have the percentages, the numbers of how often when they are in the shift that they have been successful in that shift, and would it have worked anyway if they were just shifting like we did in the old days in our time? Well, you know, how
I
would
just
it
think
compare?
I just think there's no hitter should get thrown out from a second baseman playing shallow right field. If you get a ball through the infield, it's a hit historically. If they played you a certain way, whatever, you get a ball in the through the infield, it's a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just certain things that are constant in this game. You know, if a guy has good range, that's why you get the big money. If second baseman got a lot of range and he can get to certain balls, fine. But you can throw out a slow runner, a fast runner is going to beat it out, and the fans are going to go crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
They were doing a segment the other day on like all-time records and stuff on the MLB Network, and they were mentioning the shift, and they brought up how Joe DiMaggio's hit streak is probably going to be like the one that's never going to be beat because everybody's doing the shift now, and no one's going to be able to get a hit. No one's ever going to be able to get a streak that's 56 because someone hits it up the middle. There's going to be a guy right up there now. But they said if that happened back in the day, Joe DiMaggio would still hit it the other way if there was a shift, so he'd get that extra hit.
Exactly.
Well,
nobody know hit it the other way.
Well, and it's all, you know, unless it's attributable to the fact that the hitters aren't hitting the ball and using the whole field, like you were saying, Leon.
Yeah.
You know, you have too many one swing pull hitters until, and they're starting. There's a few guys that are starting to trying to learn how to go the opposite way more. You'll see some guys trying to beat the shift by bunting more. But to use the whole field as a hitter with bat control and discipline at the plate is something that is going to have to happen to change that. And then maybe you'll get back to somebody kind of challenging a hit streak. But I don't think what DiMaggio did was something that it'll never be challenged.
No, but I'll tell you, you know the old saying in baseball, I think all you guys know this saying, take advantage of what the other team gives you. If the team is going to give you something, take advantage of it. If they leave an opening, take care, get through the opening. So you recognize whatever the other team is going to give you, take advantage of it. Yeah. And a lot of times now with that big shift, they're giving you a lot, but they're not concerned with taking advantage of it.
Well, they're not capable.
They're not capable because as soon as you start teaching launch angle,
exactly.
you've totally taken away the ability to handle the bat to all fields immediately. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
it.
Yeah. I think the last bit of conversation there kind of plays into what I think we wanted to get into on at least a segment of each podcast, which is talking about certain situations. And Eddie started touching on situational play and what you're thinking about. But unfortunately, I think we're kind of running up against time here. So it might be trivia time for this one.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, right on. So what was it? Since this past week, they were also doing the Hall of Fame inductees and stuff. And unfortunately, nobody made it this year, but got a Hall of Fame trivia question this round. So in baseball's first class in 1936 or 37, I believe, who were the first 5 inducted in the Hall of Fame? Who was the MLB's first class of Hall of Famers? There's 5 of them. Do you guys know?
I can throw some I can throw some old names out there and at a pure guess. Um,
Kennesaw Landis.
No, he's not one of them.
I would say somebody like
How about Babe Ruth?
Christy Mathewson.
Christy Masterson and Babe Ruth are two.
Okay.
We got two.
Oh, okay. I got the
See,
arrow.
it pays, Leon. It pays watching those Ken Burns documentaries on
That's
baseball.
right. That's right. I saw Ken Burns on. He was on MSNBC the other day. Oh shoot.
Who else do we got? Is Walter Johnson one of them?
Yep, he's the third one. Two more.
How about
Cy Young.
Cy Young was a second class, but that's close, Leon.
Oh, okay.
Was Hannes Wagner old enough?
Yep,
Or is he?
Wagner's the fourth one. Who's the other guy?
One more. Huh. Oh.
Is it Cobb?
Ty Cobb. That's it. So it's Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, Christy Masterson, Honus Wagner, and Babe Ruth.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
I had a couple of those.
Yeah.
I surprised myself.
Eddie, you did pretty good. You got a lot of them.
Yeah, well, I remember playing against those guys.
Right.
I just took better care of myself.
Well, Leon, Eddie, Ryan, you guys have some final thoughts for this one?
Well, number one for me, I always enjoyed talking baseball, especially enjoyed talking with Eddie. I mean, Eddie knows, and I'll say it for everybody out there listening, I think we probably have the record for the most 4-hour breakfasts in the history talking baseball. So this podcast doesn't carry a stone compared to us sitting around having coffee and having breakfast is gone and lunch is ready by the time we get finished talking baseball. I probably have to venture to say we've done it. I don't know, maybe 500 times.
Well, along that line, Steve, I think there were a few times I could probably count them on one hand only, but Leon actually asked for a lunch menu at one time after we had breakfast.
That's right. You're right. I've been known to spend the whole half the day in a restaurant talking baseball. And I know you and Steve, you and Ryan will appreciate that.
Yeah, I think
that was great times.
Yeah, I think Ryan and I have both experienced that with you and Eddie.
All right. That was fun, Steve. It was fun. Good to be back into this format here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, guys, I know, Leon, next time we do want to talk, have segments on situations like Eddie started bringing up. That was good conversation there. And I'll just remind everybody that you can hear us on Spotify or Google Podcasts. And the main website is talkingbaseball.podbean.com. And 2 movies for everyone to watch. The one documentary with Eddie on Netflix, which is called Battered Bastards of Baseball. And of course, the movie Leon is in, which was, what was that one again, Leon?
Mr. Baseball.
Mr. Baseball. Talking about some Japanese baseball with Tom Selleck.
That's right. And Leon Lee.
And Leon Lee.
Featuring Leon Lee.
That's right. Featuring. That's right.
And we'll talk to you all again soon.